In this video I'm going to fit the Lumenition Optronic ignition system. And here it is, it's sat on the side. So I'm going to give you a little rundown of what they are, how they work, why they're a good idea for any classic car, and then I'm going to show you how I fit them to this distributor. So hopefully this can act as a bit of an instructional video for people outside of those just watching this project. If you think that's boring, skip on or don't watch this one. But it's all about this. So I will hopefully have the engine running again on this by the end of the video. So if you buy Lumenition, you've got two options. One is the Magnetronic and one is the Optronic. The one is, this is the Optronic. It's about twice the price of the Magnetronic. This is the component which does the hard work. And it's about £200 or thereabouts. This one, it looks like, comes from Holden Vintage and Classic in Herefordshire. And so same with this. And then you need a fitting kit. So that's a generic thing, will work with any classic car with a distributor and points. But this is the fitting kit which goes in that distributor. So there's nothing too complicated in here, but this is specific to the car. Okay, so this is a Land Rover 6 and 4 cylinder one. So you have to know your distributors, and there might be a generic one you can get for random old distributors. So the two together are 250 or a little bit under £250 delivered. Okay, so if we look inside these then, okay, so this is the main item, £200 worth, and this is, I forget, 30 or 40 or something like that. So in here you get obviously the main machine, the Lumenition thing which turns the optical signal into a switch basically for the coil. That's an earth wire. The purple one goes to the coil. The red one goes to the power in the coil to supply this thing with power, and the other three go to this connector, and that's all the wires there are. This connector goes to the sensor. So you get the module, you get the sensor with its three wires which connect into that connector, and that's that. And then you get, well, there's the connector, there's the two screws to hold the Lumenition unit to the bulkhead. And this is an extension lead, which I don't think I'm going to need in this case. That just gives you a slightly longer positive. This is the fitting kit specific to Land Rover 6 and 4 cylinder engines, and actually other distributors which use the 22D, 23D, 25D distributors, which can be found on other classic cars. And all that kit comes with is these choppers. So that's the 6 cylinder chopper, and that is the 4 cylinder chopper. There's a little piece of plastic there, some connectors and a screw. That is it. I mean, really, this looks like 3p worth of kit, doesn't it? But what's worth remembering is you're buying the research that it took to get these made, and also for all this is a tiny little piece of plastic and very delicate. If I break it, I can't use it again. It is highly accurate. So the spacing obviously has to be completely symmetrical. The distance of these choppers compared to the gap sets the dwell angle. That is the amount of time the coil spends charging against discharging, and of course then there's the timing of it. So there's little lumps in there which are going to sit on the flats of that cam on the distributor, and I'll show you that later. So obviously this thing has to be manufactured in such a way that those sit in a sensible orientation, so this component's going to work basically. That's it. You could argue that's quite a bit of money for those components, and I'm sure this could be made pretty cheaply in China now, but the thing is, there's loads of these available, and this is the best one. It's been around for years, and it's still very much the best one. So I would imagine the Magnetronic, which is about £100 cheaper, is also very good, but we've gone for the good one here. So that's it. Let's get these parts fitted. First, we've got to understand what this thing does before we can understand how to make it better or improve on it. From the coil comes down here. Or the high voltage current, if you like, goes out to the arm and goes off to the relevant ignition lead, and this rotates, as you can see here, to point at different cylinders. We all know that's a distributor and it sends the spark to the right place, but lower down than that is this little device here. That's the contact, and it breaks. I can show you with the screwdriver. That's effectively just a switch there, okay, and that breaks like that. That switch comes open and shut, open and shut. You can see it doing it there. And that is the switch for the coil, basically. So right now the switch is closed, electricity is allowed to flow, so the positive goes to the coil then earths through here, through there. So it has an earth, it is a complete circuit, the coil charges up. When this rotor comes around to here, it opens the switch. Can you see the switch opening there, look? And can you see that switch is opening, okay? When that switch opens, the coil is de-energized, and when the magnetic field collapses, it creates a huge induced current in the other winding of the coil and makes a spark. So effectively, when that switch opens like that, there is a spark. So that's opening and closing the switch. So now we understand how it works, or how it should work. You can see the potential problems with it. As that piece of plastic wears, the amount that switch opens reduces. Sparks jump across that gap slightly, although this capacitor reduces that somewhat, and they erode, they wear. This pivot here can wear so that that contactor is not always touching in the same place, so it might make and break here, and then as various vibrations happen, it might move up or down in its in the point where it's contacting. It might move around like this, so the timing can change. As that part wears, the timing will change. As the surfaces of this wear, the timing will change, and the coil will be charged and discharged at different amounts as well. So this thing is subject to failure, and it needs constant attention. You need to constantly, every few thousand miles, work with this and tune it up, get the spark in the right place, and get the dwell right so that the coil is not overheating or producing a weak spark. So this is the failing of this thing. What the Lumenition kit allows you to do is replace that component there with this component here. So in a moment I'm going to bolt that on there. This has effectively an infrared light there. You can just think of it as a torch, but infrared, like a TV remote, and a detector there. Simple as that. So now when something goes through there, this is detecting the light coming out of here, or the infrared coming out of here. When something goes through that gap, it detects that there is something there. But no contacts have been made, there's no moving parts. So this will last forever because there's no contact, there's no actual wearing parts. Something will go through that gap, around and round and round, over and over again, and will ensure there's no wear. So there's no variation in timing, and you can actually fit a stronger coil if you wish. So this is what's called the slicer, or the chopper. The chopper, that's it. That's going to be on that shaft. When that rotates, that is going to interrupt the signal, and then allow it again, and then interrupt it and allow it, and so on. And then this is not a switch by itself, it's just a detector. So this is where this part comes in. This is a box of electronic cleverness, and that turns that interrupted signal into an on-off switch. And then you simply send this purple wire to your coil negative, or wherever that one was going before, and that's it. So first things first, we've got to take this lot out, which involves removing the condenser or capacitor. We don't need that anymore. You see there's two lines closer together, so I think the two closer together go against the flat, so I believe it goes like that. Now I'll put the sensor on. Oh, that's difficult. There we go. So this screw came with the kit. That's it, so that now should go back on the vehicle. Now that's through, I can pin it as well. That is now ready to go back on the car, and that's what I'm going to do now. So all that looks different now on the outside of the distributor is this lead here so far. I haven't changed anything else yet. So now to fit the Lumenition module next. Next thing is to mount this module. So there's the coil with its power. There's some metal which is protected by this rail here. This channel, sorry, at the back of the bonnet, so it ought not to be wet. And it's near the distributor, which is just down there. So That's going to go there. So I've drilled some 3.5mm holes. I found an area where there's loads of holes already, and I've drilled some more. So there they are with their fresh steel cut edges, which is good because it's going to form the earth for this as well. So I'm going to screw that into place with that black connector on one of them, and then do the rest of the wiring. I've had to take the coil off and faff around a bit with that because it needs some rather strange connectors. So there's a female spade here and a male spade, and I've had to swap those around from positive to negative, which was the original Land Rover arrangement. So now I've got this female which will serve to power the Lumenition. I've got that male spade which is going to have power from the car, so that'll energise the coil from the ignition switch, and it'll energise the Lumenition. And then the negative, which comes from the Lumenition now, needs a male spade. So I've got some surplus ones, namely this one and this one, but the rest is now what is needed to make this work. Luckily that came with the kit, that one there, so it took me a little while to figure it out, but that one came with the kit. Needed drilling out for 5mm to go over this bolt stud. Yeah, so that can go back on now. Amazing. Obviously this needs a good tidy up, but I'll do that with that. So that's it, it's ready to go there, except for this one connector which I can just connect straight on the distributor. All I've got to do now is just make it a little bit neater. Very chuffed with that. I'll show you the outcome now. Ugh, it's done. I'm not happy with it. It has a very retrofit look about it. Ugh, cable ties, man. So it's cable tied on there, which stops any major movement, engine vibration and stuff. And it follows the choke cable down. Yeah, that's better. And then it goes up here and up to here. So yeah, a bit gash really, but I mean this was never going to look good anyway. I'd like to have integrated it into a loom really, but it's a retrofit item, so I'm not going to beat myself up too much about it. Lots of the Land Rovers have these retrofitted. There we go, it's Lumenition, it's in. Now let's see if it starts. Right, I've started it up. Now, hopefully you can see. There we go. There's the TDC tip on the right behind that bolt. And the timing mark is way over there, super advanced. So I need to retard that quite a bit. There we go, that is showing up beautifully. We'll try and illustrate on the video. Here we go, there's an arrow pointing to the crankshaft rotating, and the bit which is flashing, and then the pointer there, that indicates I forget 6 or 8 degrees before, which will go up again when I put the vacuum back on it. There we go. On that note, I will call it a day. That is the Lumenition ignition module fitted and working.